So what is percent? So percent literally means out of 100. So per means out of, and cent is 100. So 75% means 75 out of 100. We can write this as a fraction or a ratio of 75 to 100. So we can solve these percentage problems by using this, setting up this ratio or proportion. Okay, so 75% of 36, we can set it up as 75% compared to 100% is equivalent to, and we're setting up an equivalent fraction here, 36 represents the whole, and then that represents a part. And then we could use a multiplier or a divisor or proportion to do this. Now, we can do this as 100 divided by 36. So we always want to divide to find our multiplier. And we can use this 0.36. Okay, so we can go 36 divided by 100 gives us our multiplier, 0.36. Okay, so times 0.36. And we can do the same here. We can do times 0.36. So it's important that you're able to set up this proportion and understand this multiplier that's we used before. So if I do that, I can do 75% times 0.36, and that's going to give us 27. Okay, so 27 out of 36 is same as 75%. So we can write this as x equals, in this case x equals 27. Now that is one way to do it. Now it's important to understand that in this proportional equation there is a left and right multiplier, but there's also an up and down multiplier. And here's our up and down multiplier. And this is the one we're going to start using a bit more. Okay, and this up and down multiplier here, if I want to find this multiplier, for any multiplier I divide. So I divide 75 by 100 and I get 0.75. And that 0.75 is the decimal percentage, which is also the unit rate. The up and down multiplier is our decimal percentage or our unit rate, and we can use that multiplier to solve this problem. So we can say 36 times 0.75 is equal to 27. Okay, so this is another way to do it. And this is the way we're going to use a little bit more, although we don't want to ignore that there's this left and right multiplier, and it's perfectly fine to solve this problem with this left and right multiplier. But we also want to use the up and down multiplier as well. Okay, but we don't want to just exclusively use up and down multiplier either. So this is a way we can show the multipliers in the proportional equation. It's important that you're able to show the proportional equation, okay, and also the multipliers in the proportional equation. There's lots of ways to do these types of problems, but it's important to be able to go back to the basics and show it as a proportion. Okay, so let's do this one here. 36 is 75% of what number? So we're going to set up the same proportion of 75 out of 100. So 75 out of 100% is equal to, now the 36 is the part, and we're now looking for the whole. So I'm going to use that up and down multiplier this time. So I know that if I do 75 divided by 100, I get my decimal multiplier or my unit rate of times 0.75. So if I'm going in the opposite direction, okay, times going up, I'm going to use the same multiplier, but I'm going to use the opposite or divide, going the other way. Eraser's not working here, there it is. So I'm going to divide by that same decimal multiplier of 0.75. And when I do that, I can solve for x. Okay, and the x works out to be 48. Okay, so 36 out of 48 is same as 75%. And we can show this is our calculation here that we're using to get that 75%. Okay, so what percent is 36% of 27? Okay, so 36 then represents my part. The 27 represents my whole, and I can set it up as a proportion. This time, we're solving for the percentage. So we're looking for x percent. Well, in this case, I'm just going to divide and to get my percentage. So I end up with 1.33 repeating. Okay, so this becomes 133 1/3%, or I'm just going to write this as 133.33 repeating percent. Okay, so just dividing gives us our decimal multiplier. We can use that multiplier, okay, to get from, so I should draw that in actually. My multiplier of, when I divide, I get my multiplier of 1.33 repeating. So then I'm going to multiply by 1.33 repeating, okay, to get my x percentage. Okay, so percentages are really just a ratio or a rate. Okay, out of 100, it's specifically out of 100, we can set it up as equivalent fraction. Okay, as equivalent proportion, solve it as equivalent proportion. The left and right multipliers exist. However, the up and down multipliers are our percentages, our decimal percentage, or what we would consider a unit rate. So we're going to convert a fraction to percent, which is going to be, percentage to a fraction. And all we're going to do is set it up as a proportion out of 100. Okay, so if I want to convert this from a decimal to a fraction, I can show it out of 100. Okay, and then I can show my up and down multiplier or my left and right multiplier. In this case, I'm just going to use a times 20 here and a times 20 here. So I get x is equal to, so this is a percentage, x is equal to 20%. If we divide, we get our decimal multiplier, so 0.2. 1 divided by 5 is 0.2. And our 0.2, there is a fairly easy way to convert 0.2 into a percentage. We just move the decimal 2 over to the right. So we can just move that 2 over to the right. But again, make sure that you're able to still set up a proportion for this, because it's important, again, that we understand that this is a proportion and it follows a proportional equation. So 3 out of 8 is x percent out of 100%. I'm going to divide in this case to find my decimal percentage. When I do that, I get 0.375. So I get 0.375. Okay, so my percentage is going to work out to be 37.5. Okay, so I can use this multiplier 100 times that, but I also know that I can just move the decimal place over 2 places because we're going to multiply by 100. Okay, so this one here, we're going to set up a proportion again. 5 out of 4 is x percent out of 100%. Okay, dividing those two numbers, I get 1.25. So I'm going to use my 1.25 multiplier, and I'm going to get 125%. Okay, and then for the last one here, again, since it's an improper fraction, we really don't like improper fractions. We really should make this into, so this is a mixed number. We don't like mixed numbers. We want to show it as a ratio. So I'm going to put it into an improper fraction out of 100%. Okay, so that we can solve for that. Again, the easiest way would be to divide, and we get our multiplier of 2.4. So we can say that our multiplier is going to be, our percentage is going to be 240%. Okay, so X percent is equal to 240%. Okay, and then to convert our decimal to a percent, well, we could set up a proportion, but really the easiest way is going to be to set up, to just move since we know that the calculation is going to basically involve dividing the fraction to get our up and down multiplier. And we're going to multiply from bottom 100 to the top, so we're going to just basically move the decimal point over 2 places. So 0.2 becomes, we're going to move that decimal point 1 2 places, make sure you put in a 0, so we end up with 20%. Here we're going to move that decimal point over 2 places, so we end up with 45%. We move this over 2 places, that's 135%. Here we're going to move it over 2 places, and we get 46.5%.